internet that now I use wasn't available back then. But what we did have was Tom Sitton's book. And Tom Sitton's book, Grand Ventures, he does a great job talking about Mary and Lucy and what they really kind of accomplished through life. And so that really kind of got me going on this one. And Tom's book does a phenomenal job with all the topics he touches in that book. So what we're going to try to do today is get you a little bit better understanding of what these two young ladies did and how their lives played out here and elsewhere in their lives. So here we go. All right. So you guys all know who each one of those is? Okay. All right. So Mary and Lucy. So forgive me, I haven't done this since 2014, so there's reading involved, so this isn't all memory. So Mary Hollister was the third daughter born to Phineas Banning, and she is the first one who survives to adulthood. She is the first daughter for Phineas and his second wife, Mary Hollister. Lucy Tishner Banning, and the Tishner is after Phineas's business partner, was the fifth daughter born to Phineas and the second one to survive to adulthood. She was also the third daughter to wife Mary and the last child for Phineas Banning, born in 1876. Let's see if I remember this. Oh, here we go. Okay. This is Mary Hollister Banning's Bible. And this was up on the second floor in our bookcases. And we discovered it one year because you know when you go to that second floor of the bookcases, there's just a barrage of books in there that we didn't know. So I went through that one and I couldn't believe what we'd found. And it's Mary's Bible. And she's got the dates written in there. And she even writes down where they're born in house. So all three of their daughters were born here. And Lucy would have been the last one born in the home here for Phineas and Mary. Probably, I think, safe to say, our last one born in the house. Right? So, according to the family Bible, Mary Hollister Banning was born on the 13th of January, 1871 at 11 p.m. in Wilmington, it says, at the Banning residence. The two other sisters, Ellen Mossman, was born in 1874, and she died 1 year later in 1875. And this little Ellen was buried here on the grounds until after Phineas passed, and then they both went to Rosedale, across the street, and then over to Rosedale after Mary left here. Okay. Both girls were also the half-sisters to William Sanford. Oh, I missed this part. Lucy Tishner Banning was also born here on February 11th, 1876, between 9 and 10 p.m. Both girls were also half-sisters to William Sanford Banning, Joseph Brent Banning, and Hancock Banning. Unlike their brothers, both Mary and Lucy were brought up in a favored environment due to the success of their father's business achievements. That's a little Lucy down there, and then Mary up at the top. This is the Point Furman Lighthouse for you, for those of you who don't know. And can you pick out Lucy and Mary? That's kind of hard in the back. But anyway, that's Mary. That's Lucy. And I don't know who that guy is. Hiding there in the back. During the 1880s, frequent travel became common for the family. Several trips were made back east to visit both sides of the family. The first trip in 1881, Mary takes her two daughters to Ohio to visit family and leaves Phineas behind to be a bachelor with the boys for the summer, according to the Los Angeles Herald. The second trip to the East Coast in 1884, as Mary and her daughters accompany Phineas to visit his side of the family and attend business, and also to help seek health benefits at a hot springs for Phineas. This is noted in Tom Sitton's book regarding Banning's failing health. Besides, the long-range trips, they also traveled frequently between Los Angeles and San Francisco, mostly by train. Besides traveling in her early years, Mary Banning also became accomplished with needle and thread. According to the Los Angeles Herald, she took second place at the city fair for worsted work at the age of 1880. And you know what worsted is? Right, it's needle and thread, but with a puffy relief. So she did very well at that. This is the picture of mourning. You notice they're all in black, and I should have pointed out, I can't go backwards. No, I can't go backwards. So with the girls at the Point Fermin Lighthouse, they're both in black. And the other children have the white outfits on. So they're still in mourning at that point. So this is a picture here on the grounds. Lucy is down here at the bottom. Mary is here, and that's Mary Hollister. The two other people are relatives, and we believe they're out here because of the funeral. So.
Even the doll is dressed in mourning, right? Oh, it's not.
So, here we go. With the death of Phineas in 1885, the mother made the decision to leave Wilmington and settle in Los Angeles near Fort Hill the following year. So by 1886, they had left. Mary and Lucy leave their birth home at the age of 15 and 9. Within a few years, another home would be purchased in Oakland. So both Mary and Lucy could attend school in Northern California. By 1887, Mary had graduated from Ellis Villa College, which is a finishing school, and returns with her mother to Los Angeles. But during that time, Lucy is dividing her time between the house here with her mother in Los Angeles and also back in Oakland at the Field Seminary, which is a boarding school, where she stays long enough to learn French and music. With Mary now ready and introduced into Los Angeles society, she quickly becomes noticed and is often listed in local papers. She attends her first formal gathering at the Assembly Ball on December 24th, 1887, at the age of 16. The following year, the Herald also records a solo trip on September 15, 1888, that Miss Mary Banning will leave for Washington at the course of this week. Nearly 5 years younger than her sister Mary, Lucy is not presented yet in society until the middle of the 1880s. However, at the age of 10, she is mentioned in the Los Angeles Herald regarding her success for her pansies. She has a stand at the Los Angeles Rose Show on May 6, 1886. As the 1880s conclude, the girls have lost their father and the comfort of their childhood home, but both are ready, educated, and poised to take on the next phase of their life in the final decade of the Gilded Age. As the 1890s began, both girls, Mary is 19, Lucy is 15, are now looked upon for their finished upbringing and beauty. The San Francisco Examiner runs a story on December 23rd, 1891, titled, "Los Angeles Pretty Girls, What a Northern Paper Says of Them." The LA is said to have more pretty girls to the population than any other city in the Union. The prettiest girls in the city are Mrs. Banning's. Verses have been made in the younger one's honor. Miss Lucy is a sparkling brunette. And that's key because it says she's a ginger in Port Admiral, right? That's where we get that ginger. Well, of according to the paper, she is a brunette. And it is said that she will capture a baron at least while she's in Europe. Mary is also noted for her beauty, as she is mentioned in the Los Angeles Herald in 1895. Among the LA girls who are possessors of attractive shoulders, Miss Mary Banning has scored many an admirer by her pretty neck and shoulders, and is never so strikingly lovely as in an evening gown. During the 1890s, the Banning family begins with the wedding of Hancock and Anne Banning on November 13, 1890. The ceremony included Hancock's sisters Mary and Lucy as bridesmaids. Mary Banning is now almost listed daily in the local papers with her attendance at all sorts of public events. Her life is now in the public eye, and she is considered a very accomplished young woman. The press also begins to mention the sisters more often as in a pair, and there are even reports on what their favorite fountain drinks are. Mary thinks that orange phosphate soda is the best carbonated drink ever, and Lucy has an affection for crushed strawberries and cream. In the spring of 1892, Mary Hollister Banning takes her two daughters on a grand tour of Europe. The sisters remained in Paris for 1 year, and in August, Mary Banning wrote back to the Los Angeles Herald that she will make her stage debut in Paris sometime in September, and that her sister Lucy has given up stage ambitions. When they return to Los Angeles in July of 1893, Lucy begins to pursue a new life. On December 8, 1893, Lucy, 17 years old, marries John Bradbury. He's 21, and this takes place in Oakland. At that point, the days of the Banning women trio are now at an end. So that is Lucy, and that is John Bradbury, and they are getting ready, and this isn't the Rose Parade, but this is the La Fiesta Parade, which takes place in downtown Los Angeles. I was talking to Julia before we got started, and I mentioned we could do a whole lecture on Lucy's marriages. It really blows up, and it starts with John Bradbury. Bradbury had really kind of convinced her that they needed to elope. They needed to take off and go to Oakland. The reason being is what John had told Lucy, without her mother knowing, was that he was being pursued for marriage by a woman from Europe. And the only way to get out of it was to marry Lucy up in Oakland without anybody's permission. And this was scandalous back then, right? So we'll get more into that, but that's how they got married. So the surprise elopement between Lucy and John Bradbury became an overnight scandal in the eyes of the Los Angeles high society. Both the Banning and the Bradbury families were two of the most influential and wealthiest families at the time. John Bradbury's father was a mining millionaire who had been very successful in Mexico, and they were well off into the millions. News, excuse me, there we go. News of their elopement hit the newspapers with the same tabloid sensationalism that our media thrives on today. The only thing that would top the elopement story would be her departure from Los Angeles 4 years later with H. Russell Ward, a married man who Lucy claims swept her off her feet as they both left for San Francisco to elope. While in San Francisco, both Lucy and Ward were arrested and charged with adultery. Lucy's mother enlisted the help of old friends of Phineas, and they secured Lucy's release, and charges were dropped on her, but not on Ward. He does stand trial, and that's the picture in the paper of the trial. And this is like a daily in the newspapers while this is happening. It's not headlines, right, but it's in the papers daily. He does stand trial and is convicted of adultery and fined. So he finally leaves San Francisco to reunite with his wife in Chicago. But he died falling off the train. And it's never determined if it was suicide or an accident. The Ward affair was just, it reads like a movie. And they had met in Los Angeles. John Bradbury found out about their little tryst, and she convinced John that it was nothing. And Ward had even confronted John Bradbury, though it was nothing. We're sorry. And then they forced Ward to leave town. Ward gets over the border into Arizona and then makes a U-turn. He can't stay away from Lucy. Comes back to town in LA. They reconnect, and then Lucy comes home, according to the newspaper, late at night, and John is waiting. And she is saying, I'm sorry, we finished it, we're done, I had to say goodbye. And so the next day, Lucy comes up with, I'm not feeling well, I need to go see my doctor. And so she left, went to go see her doctor. But she didn't go see her doctor. She met back with Ward, and that's where they took a steamer up to San Francisco, and that's when they got married. So by the end of the day, Bradbury realizes that Lucy's not coming back from the doctor. She's left. This time she's left for good, right? So he goes up there immediately. Mary Hollister goes up there. The mom, Mary Hollister, goes up there. Hancock Banning goes up there. They're all just wanting to get Lucy back home and get this guy out of her life. And this is where the arrest is made, and this is where the trial and the cover-up, well, I shouldn't say the cover-up, the cleaning her name up begins, and it's really something to read if you ever get a chance, because you can go online and read these newspapers, and they're just crazy. So, the other thing that they do mention is this really, really took a toll on Mary Hollister, mom, and it actually hospitalized her because she had just, this doesn't happen in 1890s. This is not something that's dealt with very easily. So we'll get more into Lucy here. So here's the marriages. Up top, Lucy Banning and John Bradbury, 1893 to 1902. Even though the affair takes place with Ward, they reconcile and they live together again. So, H. Russell Ward is the elopement in 97. 5 years later, she's still married to Bradbury. Lucy Banning and Charles Hastings become engaged after the divorce from Bradbury in 1902. They never marry. They're just engaged. Lucy leaves Charles Hastings for Mace Greenleaf in 1906, and they stayed married until 1911. In 1912, Lucy leaves Greenleaf. They don't really officially divorce, but she marries Robert Ross in 1912. Leaves Robert Ross in 1916, goes back to Charles Hastings in 1927, and they're engaged again. By 1927, she's tired of Charles Hastings. And remember, she's still not divorced from Greenleaf and Ross. She still has 2 marriages on file that haven't been taken care of. And then finally, Lucy meets the love of her life, Setsuzo Oda, who is a Japanese judo champion who comes to America, and the story goes, Jack Dempsey at the time was the world premier fighter, and the undercards featured acts that would bring in people to come see this, and Odo was on the lower card. And Lucy was at the event, and this takes place at the Olympic in Los Angeles. And as Setsu is pinning this guy on the floor of the ring, their eyes meet, him and Lucy, and they fall madly in love, and that was it. That's how they connected. It's a perfect movie. It really writes itself. So there he is. There's Lucy Setsuoro. Okay, where am I? Okay. All right, so let me go through this on the written. Lucy and John Gregory did reconcile and were together again, but reports in the papers plagued the couple as unhappy. And by 1902, they had divorced. Less than 2 months after the divorce, it was reported that Lucy was now engaged to Charles Hastings of Pasadena. Their relationship would be on and off again, but by 1906, she had abandoned Hastings for Mace Greenleaf, an amateur actor from Burbank. He was the lead performer at the Theater House. The two would stay married until 1911, and when they were divorced due to Lucy eloping with another man named Robert Ross. The year before, Lucy and Robert Ross would stay together 14 years until she grew tired of him and divorced another lover. By 1926, she had left Ross, and by 1927, their divorces were finally finalized in 27. Within months of her divorce from Ross, she ran back to Charles Hastings. And the two were reportedly engaged and gonna go to Paris to be married, but that's when she met Setsu, and that's when her relationship with Mr. Hastings was over. So Lucy and Odo, 19 years her junior, began their relationship in 1926 as Lucy would go and watch him wrestle locally. The summer of 1926, they traveled to Japan together, while Lucy was still married to Ross. However, by 28, Lucy and Odo left California for Seattle as it was legal for interracial marriage. They returned to Los Angeles only to be greeted with a storm of controversy and scandal. They were hit from all sides, her family, his contemporaries, and of course, the press. They decided to flee the pressures of home and began a year-long honeymoon, traveling to Japan and then Europe. While visiting her sister Mary in Europe, she was hospitalized in February 1929 in Florence with pneumonia and influenza. She died on February 20th with Oda and Mary by her side. Oda finally brought her body back to California, and she laid in state until her sister Mary arrived and accompanied them both by rail back to Los Angeles, where she was laid to rest at the Rosedale Cemetery in May of 1929. Odo would remain in California for years, trying to collect on his portion of Lucy's estate, which was reported to be close to $500,000. But due to the fact that most of the inheritance was real estate holdings, Odo could never collect due to the anti-Asian laws prohibiting land ownership. He does hire lawyers, but he is never successful in claiming his share of the estate. And by 1963, he is back in Japan, living off the gratitude of friends and others, and he finally commits suicide due to his failing health. So let's move to Mary. This is a little, not as exciting, but it's very romantic, shall we say. So I gotta make mention about this photograph. Until when I did this lecture back in 2014, we had no idea what Wilt Wakeman Norris looked like. Not a clue. But we were given a donation, as most of you know, with the wallet that came out of that donation from Bob Bannings. There was a ton of photographs in there. And so as I'm going through everything in there, there's just a variety of just incredible images. And here we go. That's Mary and Wilt. And the back of this says Santa Barbara.
The mission, yeah.
That's where it is.
Wow.
So, by 1894, a young man named Wilt Wakeman Norris had arrived in Los Angeles. He was the son of a wealthy and prominent New York family. By occupation, he was a mining engineer, but in Los Angeles, he sat on the board of directors as the secretary for the Pacific Drug Company. The pair of Wilt Norris and Mary Banning begins to appear in local society columns in early 1895. They are cited as attending dinners, teas, and Los Angeles galas together. Mary's mother has also taken a liking to Wilt and confides in the young man for financial decisions. On September 26, 1897, their engagement was officially announced. They were married on November 18, 1897 at St. Paul's in Los Angeles. Escorting Mary down the aisle was her mother, who gave her away. The post and pre-wedding receptions were held at the Banning Fort Hill home. The newspaper account commented on the overwhelming attendance and the abundance of seasonal bouquets. The newlyweds reportedly took an extended honeymoon and visited Chicago, New York, and Washington. When they returned, they moved into the Fort Hill home with her mother. After their return to Los Angeles, they spent the next few years living happily at the Fort Hill address. They were a society couple that could be found entertaining and contributing to charitable causes. Mary even found time to be a kennel judge for the Los Angeles County Dog Show in 1897. By the turn of the century, they had moved to Mexico City for a few years and then back to Los Angeles. However, tragedy would strike the couple as Wilt, at age 36, died while visiting New York in 1905. The newspaper claims he had a ruptured appendicitis and was untreatable. The young couple had been married just over 7 years. Mary was now 34 and began a life as a widow and would never remarry. Isn't he a handsome young guy there?
Very handsome.
So that's William, her older brother, and that's the front of the house, if you can tell. So this was taken, we think, probably when the sale or the transition from family to the city for the house and park, because there was a big promotional, lots of photos taken that day, and we think that was taken then. After his passing, Mary resumed her cultured lifestyle. She lived in New York and would visit Los Angeles often and would stay primarily with her mother and at times her brother Hancock, as she depended on his financial recommendations. By 1910, Mary, along with brothers from Los Angeles societies departed for around-the-world extended cruises on the steamer Siberia, which included a visit to the World's Fair in Brussels. When she returned, she did not stay in New York very long, and by 1913, she again departed for another extended voyage on the steamer George Washington, and would stay in Paris this time until the beginning of World War I. During the 1920s and 30s, Mary returned to stay in Paris and would occasionally come back to Los Angeles, New York for brief visits. By the mid-1930s, she had moved back to Los Angeles from Paris for good, not wanting to stay with the impending Nazi momentum that was gaining in Europe. She moved into the upscale Biltmore Hotel and lived there until her death in 1956. Mary Banning Norris became the last one of her generation and outlived all of her brothers and their wives and her sister. She lived to be 85 years old. So, with that, I have a surprise for you. So I'm going to share with you the photos that were in the boxes of the wallet that was found at Phineas. And so these photos have never been seen by any of our volunteers or the public, other than me. So I'm happy to share these with you. First one is this one. That's Mary and Lucy. And we've never had a picture of both of them as adults. They are prime of life right there. So that is Lucy and Mary. So let's start with Mary. So this is her probably age, 6, 7, growing up. This was taken by Tabor in Monterey Street in San Francisco, and so is the other one. So that would have been, she was born in 71, so this is probably mid-70s going into 1877, 78. That's Mary as a young lady. This is taken by Schumacher in Los Angeles. Schumacher is interesting because he is the same age as Joseph Banning. And Schumacher was a skilled photographer who spent a lot of time with Joseph. So I'm kind of thinking Joseph has learned his photography skills or probably helped with Schumacher. But there's young Mary. Great pictures. And there's Mary again, and this is Mary probably after Wilt has passed, where she's in her traveling suit. And that's Mary traveling. And the back of this says Lake Como. That's Mary. I don't know who the gentleman is. He's not listed. And here's Mary's passports. So this one is stamped out, and that's her picture for her passport, but it didn't make the passport because there's several of these. So one was taken, but she kept the extra ones. And this one is at the Conejo Ranch in Ventura, which is where family had, well, the brothers had their ranch up there. Can anybody spot Mary and Lucy? I know it's kind of hard. Okay, the gentleman at the far end with the horse is William. That's Lucy. And that's Mary. The rest of them, unfortunately, I don't know. And they're not listed. That's John Bradbury and Wilt Wakeman. So here's the two brother-in-laws together. And I'm assuming this is up at Ventura. It's not listed at the Conejo Ranch that they own. There they are. I'd never seen a good picture of Bradbury before where you could really get a look at his face. You know, he's off in the distance, or he's got something covering him up. This was taken by Joseph, and this is on our front porch, sitting in front of the general's office. So if you look at the girl, the one on the left is Lucy, the one on the right is Mary. And when you enlarge this, they're in heavy makeup. So they're acting, it's a play or something, because their eyebrows are just like Groucho Marx. They're just thick, black, and they both have ginormous painted beauty marks on their chins. And they're in the same spot on both of them. And I'm not sure if they're wigs or not, because I've never seen them with their hair that, big, but here we go. Joseph took some amazing pictures here. I don't know. Now for some fun Lucy pictures. Okay. All right. See where it says Hotel Inn on the right? That gentleman is Robert Ross. 1912 to 1926, husband. The gentleman on the left is Charles Hastings. He is the one that was engaged but never married. Engaged twice, from 1902 to 1906, and then again in 1927. There they are. And these are postcards, believe it or not. You flip these over, and it literally is a postcard. When they traveled or went places, I guess it was common or have your picture taken, and they would make you a set of postcards, and they would write on them and mail them off as a way. It's kind of like a Polaroid, but and I had no idea they did that. But these are both postcards. And this is Lucy inside of I'm guessing a hotel room, because this is part of her travel ensemble. So there's just pictures of Lucy like that. The unfortunate thing is there's no young pictures like we had with Mary, but with Lucy, they're all her adult pictures. And there's Lucy traveling with full fur-length coats and jewelry, and I don't know where these locations are. It's not written down. And that is Setsu. Now, the interesting thing about this postcard, they only took one trip together before she died, and it was in Europe, right? So I don't know where this marker is in Florence. Somebody might be able to identify it that's been there, I don't know. But I think this is probably one of the last pictures of Lucy before she got sick. Covered in pigeons. Maybe it was the bird flu that got her. I don't know. I'm just kidding. And this was my favorite one. This postcard with Lucy. She's in Arkansas for whatever reason. And it says, slow train through Arkansas. Don't know where we're going, but on the way. So on the back of all of the postcards that Lucy has of her, she never writes where she's at. It's always her appearance and how she looks, and if she's happy with the picture or not because of how she looks. But on the back of this one it says, you can hardly tell us apart, but are we not cute? Which I thought was really funny. So I want to leave you with this. This was also in the box with the wallet. It's a check written to Lucy from Phineas when she's just 6 years old for $10. And if you look at the bottom on the signature, it says, and I think this is what it says, "Finally, Papa." So this was kept as remembrance, or whoever wanted this, whoever kept it. Maybe it was Lucy kept this, I don't know. But we had it in the box, and it was in the files next to the wallet. A lot of wonderful things in there. So thank you guys, I hope you enjoyed learning. So if you guys have any questions, I can try and, yes.
So I wonder, the picture with Wilt and John
Yes.
holding the board, do you think that could be on Catalina? Because it looked like the back.
You know, that's a good question, because, but Catalina, they don't have the oak trees that size that's behind them. And I thought that too. But when you look at the other pictures of the Conejo Ranch, there's oaks everywhere. So I kind of lean towards the Conejo connection. Yes, Meg?
I assume they both girls inherited a ton of money. Did they inherit equally? Was Lucy Pursuit also not just for her great beauty, but for her money, or was anything about that?
Unfortunately, I don't know anything about that. Tom Sitton's book talks a little bit about the inheritance, but it was mostly real estate for both of them. Lucy, on the other hand, I think put a lot of her money into jewelry. No, seriously, she was known, and if you look at the pictures that they have of her as she's, in the 1920s, every picture of her is just from neck down, rings, every finger, bracelets, just, incredible looking jewelry, and I'm sure she invested heavily in that. One of the stories that you read about when she dies in Florence, and Mary comes home, Sister Mary comes home, but Setsu stays in Florence trying to get everything organized to get her body to be, released and all of the procedures, the embalming, everything that's got to take place to get her to be able to travel home, right? In the newspapers, it's just circulating that Lucy has passed, right? And it's from coast to coast. And by the time they meet in New York, the ship gets into New York, and Mary and Setsu get Lucy off and get her settled on the train, and they start heading towards the West Coast. By the time the story goes, by the time they make it to Los Angeles, there's just these past husbands are just there with their hands out, saying, "I'm not divorced from her. I'm entitled," right? And this is what just ties it up in courts, and the lawyers end up eating most of the whatever Lucy has left. That just gets eaten up. And poor Setsu is, he stays here and fights this all through the 1930s. He's put into a relocation camp during World War II, sticks it out, stays here, and then goes after it again at the end of the 40s and the 50s until he's just literally destitute, has spent everything he can trying to, claim, he's the sole heir, right? But it never works out for him. And they made the comment, the lawyers got it all. Now, Mary, on the other hand, I'm not sure. I'm sure, she obviously took care of herself, took care of her finances, and, did well.
And there wasn't anything in the Sitton book about where Mary's estate went.
No,
And she might have had provisions to go to her nieces and nephews.
probably, yeah, yes.
Doesn't Conejo mean rabbit in English? Conejo is rabbit in Spanish, and it's English is rabbit.
Yes,
So that was the rabbit.
I believe so. Conejo, is up in Ventura, and it's still there. They built this incredible dam that created a freshwater reservoir there, and that's still there. As far as their property, I'm sure it is all homes and everything else. But yeah, that was it. Yeah. Yes.
So I wonder what your plans are for the pictures. Are they going to be displayed someplace or what?
Well, we've got, the good news is, all of the donation that was made through Bob Banning's estate, the boxes, they've all been archivally worked through. We know what's in all of it. We have listings of it all.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, okay, well, we have some boxes taken. So, and there's more coming. But it's all, you know, your next director will have the wonderful task of being able to work through all of this stuff, and it's all gonna, and it's easy to navigate when you look at the listings of what's all there. So, yeah.
It's really amazing.
It's incredible. And it's amazing that you have no idea what went through my head when I found that wallet. And I just looked in that box and I could not believe what I had just picked up off the bottom of the box. And it's like,
It's just
how long has this been?
Right.
It got packed up.
It got packed up, yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, what's interesting to me is that, you know, you think that Nancy Banning Call would have pretty much gathered as much as she could of what was coming out of the family as her older generation died. But Bob Banning was on the Hancock side and Nancy was on the Joseph Brent side. There might have been a little competition about who had what, and there wasn't gonna be any merging of the story. And Bob was on the Hancock side, he was by far the most fastidious and interested in gathering the history.
You're right. He was, well, I was able to talk with him several times in my time here, and he's the family historian.
Yeah.
You know, he knew, you know, the connections here, and how this worked, and
Not sure Nancy thought it was the family historian.
Well,
It was an interesting dynamic.
he was a real joy to talk with at times, so I really enjoyed him.
It sounded like.
Yeah. Yes.
What became of the elder Mary?
Well, Mary, you know, so Mary Hollister, when she leaves in 1886, she leaves here, she has she purchased the brewery on top of Fort Moore Hill. And that brewery was changed into a home. She had it completely redesigned and worked into a home, where this had been just a beer saloon for years, right? Instead of buying a new house, you know, she's doing it that way. And then after she gets tired of that, she is the first person in LA County to contract a home through Irving Gill. Irving Gill is the genius in California who's doing cement slab construction. And this is the first home in LA City proper and LA County of Irving Gill's design. And she fights, and there's a great book on that, she fights with him all the time. Because she wants things her way, and he wants things his way. He's the architect, right? So he's like, no, she's not gonna put up with that. And it was said that she was on her deathbed when this project started. Nobody could believe, why is she trying to do this? You know, this is gonna kill her. But she actually bounced back from this and just had become just emboldened and healthy, and ended up living there from 1913 until she passes in 1919. And she's there, and the LA Times actually did a great story on this. And they visit her, and they talk to her about her possessions that are in there and the architectural design. And they're making the point of, you know, you came from Hollister, California, from an adobe to the home in Wilmington, that Grand Victorian, to a beer hall, and then and changed that to a home. And now you're living in the most modern cubist home that's ever been created in Los Angeles. And she just took it as a, yeah, so. But the interviewer kept pointing out was like, you know, with this modern home, why do you have all this Victorian furnishings? It's just such a contrast. And her point was, and it's stated in the paper, these are mine. I paid for these with my money. These are mine. And we've got pictures in the LA Times. We see the bureau, the buffet in the dining room with the deer. That's in the picture. The other wonderful image in the LA Times is in the dining room. In art, well, we see it today over the mantle, the eagle, the embroidered eagle. That was done for the 1876 centennial. She has that in that LA Times picture. And it's there. And I saw that and I went, oh my God, there, look at that, look at that. It was just amazing. So that picture had gone from here, Fort Moore Hill, and then over to the Guild House. Same with her furniture. It all went with her. And she wasn't gonna, this was mine. I paid for it. She's very proud of the fact she was a businesswoman. So, yes.
In that photo of the actresses on the front porch, I noticed
Yeah.
the paint trim was dark.
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of span that?
So that had to be late 1870s, early 1880s, right? So when I do the talk on the architectural changes of the home, you know, so the house goes from a cream color with salmon shutters to a dark brown with darker brown shutters, right? So, and that was done because Mary, in her letters, kept saying, I'm tired of the ever pursuit of cleaning dust and dirt. So, with the house being, I'm sure, you know, that canary yellow, it was for a long time, it was just caked. You know, there's no asphalt, no pave, you know, it's just wind, it's dirt, it's rain, you know, it's gonna be a dirty house. So they changed the color to reflect the dirty house where it wasn't as noticeable. All right, well, thank you guys very much.